Urgent. Trump called Putin, Erdogan responded to Iran's attack, and the price of oil collapsed after Trump's statement that the war in Iran may soon come to an end. Against the backdrop of events in the Middle East, peace talks on Ukraine are being postponed for now. Greetings, friends. This is the Project in the Crosshairs. I am Alexander Prepodobny, and we are starting. Well, it was loud. Last night, military targets were hit in Crimea, which is temporarily occupied by Russia, as well as in the Belgorod and Bryansk regions. Putin spoke on the phone with Trump about Iran and negotiations on Ukraine. The conversation was reported by the Russian dictator's aide, Yuri Ushakov. According to him, the phone call lasted about an hour and was supposedly frank and constructive. Ushakov noted that they hadn't spoken on the phone for a long time, the last time being all the way back in December of 2025. Trump, of course, called the conversation good, and here are his exact words. We,
of course, talked about the Middle East, and he wants to be helpful. I said, you could be even more helpful if you put an end to the war between Ukraine and Russia. That would be even more useful. In
turn, President Volodymyr Zelensky made a statement about peace negotiations. Let's listen to what the Ukrainian president said. The trilateral meeting between the US, Russia, and Ukraine has been postponed at the suggestion of the US. The reason is the war with Iran. The next round of negotiations was supposed to take place on March 11th in Istanbul. And now, here's a quote from the Ukrainian president. We
see that the Russians are now trying to manipulate the situation in the Middle East and in the Persian Gulf countries to serve their own aggression. They are also turning the strikes by the Iranian regime against its neighbors and American bases, essentially into a second front in Russia's war against Ukraine and more broadly against the entire West. This must absolutely not be allowed.
And now more details about the events in the Middle East. Donald Trump claims that the war in Iran is ahead of schedule by 4 to 5 weeks and may end soon, so the market reacted instantly to this statement. The price of oil dropped to $89 per barrel, and meanwhile, in the Strait of Hormuz at the port of Bandar Abbas, a significant portion of Iran's naval forces was destroyed as a result of a powerful strike. It is reported that it was from this port that Iranian forces exerted pressure on ships passing through the strait. Speaking about the overall situation and Donald Trump's statement, it follows that the US and Israel have destroyed most of Iran's naval and air forces as well as its missile capabilities. He called on the government in Tehran to unconditionally surrender. And despite Trump's loud statements, Washington is evacuating its embassy in the region. Let's take a closer look at the situation.
The American military campaign against Iran is only just beginning. This statement was made by US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He stated that Iran's ability to demonstrate its strength in the region is sharply decreasing. According to him, more than 50,000 American servicemen are involved in the operation called Epic Fury. The head of the Pentagon confirmed that the main goal of the US is to achieve Iran's unconditional surrender. Against the backdrop of the situation surrounding Iran, the US is evacuating some staff from its consulate in the Turkish city of Adana. According to the website of the American diplomatic mission in Turkey, the US Consulate General in the city has suspended its services, and American citizens in southeastern Turkey are strongly advised to leave the region due to security threats. Earlier, American diplomats were ordered to leave Saudi Arabia. US diplomatic missions, including those in Jordan, Qatar, Bahrain, and Israel, have also been closed. Meanwhile, Iran continues to carry out strikes on neighboring countries. On March 9th, the Babco oil refinery in Bahrain was attacked. According to OSINT analysis by the Telegram channel Astra, a fire broke out at the refinery. The Ministry of Defense of Bahrain stated that the country's air defense systems destroyed 102 ballistic missiles and 171 drones since the beginning of the attacks from Iran. At the same time, France is planning a defensive mission to restore passage through the Strait of Hormuz. As stated by French President Emmanuel Macron, the goal of the operation is to ensure the security of international maritime routes and to prevent further escalation of the conflict in the region. According to him, the mission does not involve offensive actions and is aimed solely at defense.
It has also become known that Iran launched missile strikes on a German military facility in Jordan. According to Der Spiegel, the German sector of the Al-Azraq Air Base, which also houses US Air Force units, came under fire. As a result of the attack, the barracks building used by the Bundeswehr contingent was damaged. During the strike, the German soldiers were in shelters, so there were no casualties. And for the second time this week, an Iranian missile has landed there. In Turkey, it was intercepted by NATO air defense systems. Erdogan made a statement saying that such provocations threaten the friendship between Ankara and Tehran. Here are the direct words of the President of Turkey.
Despite our sincere warnings, extremely wrong and provocative actions continue to be taken, which will put Turkey's friendship at risk. In light of today's incident, I would like to remind once again that one should not persist or insist on defending one's mistake.
By the way, here's an interesting detail. Ukraine has already received, just think about it, 11 requests for assistance in combating Iranian drones from Iran's neighbors, European countries, and the United States. The first group of drones, interceptors, and Ukrainian experts is now on its way to the Middle East. Details are in our report.
Ukraine has sent interceptor drones and teams of drone experts to protect American troops in Cisjordania. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced this in an interview with the New York Times. The president noted that the United States requested assistance on March 6th. The Ukrainian team departed the following day. They are expected to arrive in the Middle East soon. The war between the US and Israel and Iran risks diverting the world's attention from the war in Ukraine. But it has also given Kiev the opportunity to use its expertise and advanced technologies on a new front. In the first days after the start of US-Israeli military operations in Iran, according to Volodymyr Zelensky, he and his team received calls from Middle Eastern leaders requesting assistance. Ukraine agreed to provide support in exchange for diplomatic help in pressuring Russia to achieve a ceasefire. Zelensky noted that some Middle Eastern countries have very strong ties with Russia. The Telegraph columnist and former British Army officer Hamish de Breton Gordon writes, "Whatever the outcome of the current US attack on Iran, the strategic result has been achieved. The regime has been decapitated, and the psychological consequences of this will be felt around the world, not least by the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin." According to the expert, Vladimir Putin continues to drag out peace negotiations. His strategic goals in Ukraine have remained unchanged since the beginning of the invasion. However, recent events may force the Kremlin to reconsider its tactics. US actions in the Middle East also have a direct impact on the war in Ukraine. Iran has long supplied Russia with drones and munitions. If these supplies are disrupted, Moscow's military capabilities could be weakened. A former British regular army officer emphasizes that if Washington's message to Tehran is that the time for negotiations has run out, this signal will be heard in the Kremlin. In that case, Putin will have to decide. Is the strategy of prolonging the war effective?
And now, news from the front. The armed forces of Ukraine have liberated almost the entire Dnipropetrovsk region. Only a few settlements remain. According to Major General Oleksandr Komarenko, chief of the main operational directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, our forces are conducting a planned offensive operation at the junction of the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. During these actions, more than 400 square kilometers have already been liberated. At the same time, the situation in the Huliapol direction is very difficult, according to Vladislav Voloshin, a representative of the defense forces of southern Ukraine. Just in the past day, Ukrainian soldiers have recorded 19 assaults. What is really happening in Huliapol, and what surprises are Ukrainian defenders preparing for the enemy? Details in the report.
One of the factors behind the success of Ukraine's defense forces in liberating settlements, the PHONED in the south, is maintaining silence in the information space. This was stated by Oleg Apostol, commander of the air assault forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The Major General said that the Russians could take advantage of any information disclosed. He noted that currently the enemy receives information with delays, and in some cases they are given false information. Oleg Apostol emphasized that certain details about the advance of the defense forces still cannot be disclosed. Meanwhile, the commander of the 1st Separate Assault Regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Dnipropetrovsk, stated that, as of today, the city of Huliapol in the Zaporizhzhia region is almost completely occupied. At the same time, the serviceman emphasized that this is part of the overall plan, and very soon everyone will understand why events are unfolding this way. Regarding the situation in Huliapol, the serviceman said that it is very dynamic and can be compared to the situation in the Dnipropetrovsk direction, which was more or less stabilized, but the tension there has not been completely relieved. However, the plan that the enemy had set for themselves there was completely destroyed, Filatov reported.
It's about the same here. The enemy views the Zaporizhzhia direction as the next area to exert pressure on the armed forces. What is the reason for this? First of all, Zaporizhzhia is a very powerful industrial city, and obviously, any impact on the city itself will have significant consequences for industry, for our country, and for the resilience of the armed forces. In
The report by the Institute for the Study of War states that the Russian army has redeployed a unit of the 40th Marine Brigade from the Pokrovska direction to the Huliapol direction. Analysts link this move to the recent successes of Ukraine's defense forces on the border of the regions. Meanwhile, Ukraine's defense forces delivered a powerful strike on Russian targets in occupied Crimea, resulting in the destruction of Pantsir systems, a landing craft, and the Orion UAV base.
So friends, that's all the important news for now. We are keeping an eye on developments in Ukraine and around the world. And don't forget to subscribe, give us a like, and see you next time on the project. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.